What's going on, you guys? One of the people that I've been working with recently that is looking at buying a FedEx route business that's for sale noticed on the settlements, which are the weekly sort of paychecks essentially from FedEx corporate, he noticed on those settlements that it doesn't look like the drivers are being utilized equally. Like certain drivers are delivering a tremendous amount of stops, i.e. unique locations, and some drivers aren't delivering nearly as much. And there's a couple of really good I think learning points in both asking this question and also what's going around and what's probably coming up in the future with this sort of line of thinking. So a couple things here. One is that this question, like if I'm looking into the future, which I can almost do from evaluating these things for like 15 years, this question is based around the idea of, are there deficiencies in the management of this business? Is there upside potential? Can I restructure things or remanage things in a way that's going to increase that profitability? That's likely where this question is coming from. And this is a really, really good learning point here. And that is that a lot of times when people come in and they have bought and sold other businesses, or they are very intelligent, they can see problems and they're seeking those things out and seeking ways to be able to make it better. In the FedEx world, the chances of that happening are next to zero. They're nearly zero. And that sounds weird because every business has issues. The problem is that in the FedEx world, it's so structured and has so many systems in place, and the amount of things that a contractor can really change, which is really just the trucks and the drivers, is very, very minimal. And so, yes, there is the chance that drivers are not being adequately used. Some drivers are being, overwhelmed with packages and stops, and some are being severely underutilized. But even in those situations, I would be more expecting that we would see the person that doesn't have nearly as many stops to be paid so much less to where it doesn't matter. So like, for example, let's say they did come in. They equalized all the amount of stops, which by the way is impossible. We'll come back to that. They somehow managed to equalize all the amount of stops. That person that was getting paid super low because they were doing a very small amount of stops, they're going to be like, hey, I want to get paid way more. And so whatever you have saved from balancing out that load balancing is what they call it in the industry, you're going to lose because the guy's either going to quit or he's going to demand a raise or whatever. So even if that situation existed, it's like, we're still not really making any progress in terms of having this upside potential. The other thing too that a lot of people get themselves into trouble with is that when a seller or a broker already has the excuse locked and loaded from the buyer, they will lean into it. So for example, a lot of buyers think that they can try to figure out the magical percentage of, gross revenue that should be their gas or what should be their payroll or whatever. Those things don't work. And when sellers can say, oh yeah, we're at 20% and you saw it was 20% too. And yeah, sure, that's what it is. Hey, look how honest I am. There's all sorts of problems with the percentages of gross and margins and all that kind of crap. But the other thing that happens too is that a buyer will come in and they'll sort of have the the underlying idea like, hey, Mr. Seller, you're doing things terribly, and I'm going to come in and make them better. And when sellers see that, they just jump on it. So they'll say, oh yeah, man, I'm so stupid. I just run things like, neglectfully, and I don't know what I'm doing. I'm just an idiot, and you're going to make things better, and you're going to be able to turn this business around and make 10 times as much. You're going to be great. And a buyer will look at that and say, oh, well, I am smart, which is probably true, right? And the problem is that the way that you can implement that intelligence, i.e. splitting things out between drivers and equalizing their loads and things like that, it never transpires. And so when you come in and you evaluate these types of businesses, you need to never think that the seller is stupid, that the seller is doing things wrong. More often than not, and I mean a vast majority of times, the seller is doing everything they possibly can, and the things that seem stupid are just things that we don't know. And so, for example, even in the situation with the guy that's not doing a whole bunch of stops, let's say 40 versus someone else that's doing 120, it's like, wait, why don't we balance this out? Well, the problem with that is that those 40 stops might be going to a part of the territory that has all of the industrial areas. It has the office supply stores. And so he's delivering monstrous sized boxes that are desks, chairs, grills, things like that, that like will fill up the whole freaking truck, right? And so a typical person's going to come in there and they're going to say, hey, Mr. Seller, why are you doing all this 40 stops with one guy and 120 with the other? Is there upside potential on this? It doesn't seem like you're running things very well. And the seller's going to be like, oh yeah, man, gosh, I never even thought about that. When you get this thing, it's going to be even better than what I've been claiming. And so people get in there and they're like, holy shit, this truck is full with 40 stops. And really, that 40 stops, you can't add anymore because the truck's already full. You can't do anything else. And so it's like, oh, there was never any upside potential at all. So one important idea, that if you think that the seller is doing things in an idiotic fashion, and when you come in and you make them better, that there is upside, there's no upside. The seller is not an idiot. And it's like, again, this is a very, very common theme. And so that's one part of things. The second part that I think is really good is that when you understand what's going on in these settlements, because a lot of times when people look at a settlement, and I'm talking about typical buyers that don't really know what they're doing or just listening to advice they found from random spots on the internet, or God forbid the seller themselves, they'll look at the settlements and they basically just look at how much money is coming into the business. They look in that lower right-hand corner, wow, $15,000 a week, we're going to get rich, and this kind of thing, right? But when you really start to look at the settlements and you can see the rhythm of the routes, you can start to see the problems that the seller is really going through and start to think, hey, do I want to solve these problems? Can I solve these problems? Hey, why is this, particular driver only doing 40 stops? Can I fix this? No, you can't, and so on and so forth, to be able to determine which route is going to be right for you. Because I believe that most routes are good to varying degrees. It's just a matter of whether it's good for you. Like, are you wanting to be semi-absentee? You want to be more hands-off? Do you want to be able to have a very fast repayment period, for the amount that you've invested in buying this business, and so on and so forth. So the point is that when you can look at those settlements and start to see the pictures, then you could start to ask really good questions, because you may go up to that person, that seller, and say, hey, why do you have this guy only doing 40 stops? And now you've got a good question that the seller can kind of rant about, like, oh man, we've got these office supply stores and it's a pain in the ass. Oh man, I don't even make any money on this one particular route. But hey, on all the other routes that I've got dispatching, yeah, we're making really good money, but that one not so much. And it's like, so FedEx has this tendency to sort of switch things around on us a little bit. And sometimes our routes may become more profitable and sometimes less. And sometimes, again, with this idea of margins and whatnot, you could see that if FedEx, let's say, for example, went out to those industrial facilities, shipping warehouses, office supply stores, and said, hey, we can ship all this crazy stuff. And they're like, what? This is huge. This is bulky. This is crazy. It's going to fill up your whole truck. We're like, we don't care. We got a contractor. He's going to take care of it. And then the contractor's like, oh boy, more volume. We've got more packages coming in. FedEx is growing our business. And then FedEx is like, oh, by the way, it's, outdoor swimming pools. It's a Nordic Flex and this kind of stuff. And it's like, oh, so I'm going to fill up my whole truck and basically only be able to get 40 stops off. Yeah, it's more revenue. Is it more net income? Yeah, maybe. But it's more revenue, which is, again, another big problem with using the margins, because sometimes you will see more volume come in, more revenue, and less net income. So anyway, I will rant about this percentages thing until I'm dead, basically. This sort of gets under my skin every single day. Anyway, everyone does it. I get it. It's part of it. That's just where we are right now. Anyway, the point is that whenever you are looking at these things, I think it's a really good thing that you can see the settlements, analyze them in a deeper sort of manner to ask better questions. I think that is a fantastic path to be able to getting owners to rant, and then understanding what the real problems are, and then finally understanding whether you want to solve those problems. But the biggest thing here, the biggest underlying concept here, is that if a seller sounds like they want you to think that they are stupid, that they are doing things inefficiently or ineffectively, you need to pause on that for a moment, because a lot of times, and I mean the vast majority of times, it's not going to transpire quite like they want you to think that it does. So anyway, a couple of really good points to think about, especially whenever you see anomalies, such as like improperly load balanced drivers and things like that. Just pause for a second and think, what are all the different things that could be happening here? And hopefully when you start to evaluate things and talk to the seller and things like that, you're going to be in a much, much better spot. So anyway, hopefully this helps. Take care. Talk soon. Bye-bye.